The TV show Yellowjackets is about a girls' high school soccer team that becomes stranded in the Canadian wilderness after their plane crashes on the way to nationals. This series is an amalgamation of horror, gut-wrenching tragedy, and mystery being told through the eyes of teenagers and their extremely traumatized adult counterparts. The team navigates life while stranded in the wilderness for about 19 months. As they fight for survival, we see the girls explore the line between hunting for food and hunting for fun. Hi everyone, you've probably never seen my face before, but I would like to talk about the Showtime series Yellowjackets. My desire to discuss this show has only grown in intensity as the season 3 premiere approaches, so I thought why not talk about it with all of you. I'm going to split this video up into multiple parts just to make it more digestible for everyone, and here's my official spoiler warning for seasons 1 and 2. Let's just get into it. So for this part, we've actually gotten 3 different trailers. We've gotten a first look, we've gotten the official trailer, and then we've gotten a bonus trailer that's been airing as an ad, and I'm going to go over all of them with you guys. So the opening scene of the trailer is a shot of the wilderness, followed by the girls in rapid succession. We see Shauna, Misty, Ty, Van, Lottie, and then we get another shot of the wilderness. We see the girls running together in the woods, and then we see Mari kind of running ahead of them. It pans to a blonde girl with an animal hide face covering on, and the text, "The past will come back to hunt you," is displayed over her face as the shot zooms out. We see Shauna and Pink Cap Girl side by side. Shauna mutters something about wishing we ate that girl first. We see the girls in the woods together. They look excited and they're jumping up and down. And then you're hit with a shot of Coach Ben and a RIP. We see Shauna and Callie sitting down together. Callie's asking to finally be let in on, what happened out there. That's quickly followed by a shot of Jackie in a freezer. We see adult Ty and Van making out, and over Van's shoulder, Thaisa sees the man with no eyes. Young Ty states, "This place will haunt us for the rest of our lives." That's quickly followed by a shot of what I believe to be the moon. I don't know, it's kind of pixelated. And then we see a shot of the girls together in the wilderness, holding up candles and looking up to the sky, shocked all at the same time. Young Natalie's walking into what looks to be a tunnel. She steps in a puddle, and that's quickly followed by a shot of Coach Ben in a similar environment, but he's screaming his head off. He's screaming out, "Are you hearing this? What is happening?" There's a shot of young Shauna looking up to the moon and howling like a wolf. And then we see a shot of a teenage girl with brown hair coming to her front door and picking up a letter addressed to one Shauna Shipman. We get a shot of adult Shauna, and she says, "Somebody wants to kill us," and that's followed by Missy investigating some letter of her own. We get a shot of Lottie sighing, and then we see the girls in the wilderness. They're all circling Lottie, and they're all dressed in robes. It looks to be like some sort of ritual. We see Ty, and then we see Ty and Van. Van says the only people that know about this are either us or dead. We see young Shauna draw a weapon, and that's quickly paralleled by adult Misty drawing her iPhone flashlight to investigate those decrepit stairs. We get a makeshift gavel being slammed down on a tree stump. In the forefront of that shot, we see antlers, and in the background of that shot, we get to see Coach Ben and Misty sitting together. Cuts to young Shauna getting in Nat's face and telling her that she's not in charge anymore. Then we literally see adult Misty stab Shauna in the back. That looks to be happening in the compound kitchen. We see young Misty pulling up a mask about halfway up her face, and then we see Thaisa cock a weapon back. And we finally see Walter. Yay! We see Lottie screaming, and then we get a shot of Van sitting in front of some fire, entranced in the flames. I don't really know what's happening there. That's followed by adult Misty setting some paper on fire in her scrubs. The rest of this is happening very quickly, so if I'm missing any little bit, I apologize. But rapid fire, we see young Nat in the plane, Shauna holding up a weapon to Pink Hat Girl's neck. Someone gets bitten. It looks like somebody's trying to put their kneecap back in place. There's a quick shot of a girl, I believe it's Mari, and she's getting held down on the ground. That's quickly followed by another girl with long dark hair being pushed face first into the dirt. Ew. There's a shot of Coach Ben screaming, and we see young Shauna going for a swim. All of a sudden, she goes under the water. And finally, we see Minivan Woman, aka Hilary Swank. She's a bit bloody. Her arm is bandaged, and she's holding the other one. We see her start to scream, and then she turns and runs. So the opening scene of the bonus trailer is Shauna going down in the plane crash. She has her oxygen mask on. There's a clip of the explosion that we see back in season 1 once it's landed that almost took out Van. We see Misty blow a horn and then we see Mari. It's part of the chasing sequence that we've seen in the original trailer, but we just see her turn around kind of looking shocked. And then there's a bunch of quick shots of the girls again. We get a shot of Misty, we get Shauna in the freezer. We see Ty. I'm pretty sure the background is Lottie's compound, but don't quote me on that. And then we see Van. She's in front of a couple candles. Fire again, how fitting. Is she ever gonna catch a break? Probably not. We get a creepy shot of Shauna looking up at the camera. We see Misty again, she's dressed in Nat's jacket. We see her going through a dumpster and holding up one specific piece of paper, I believe. Chili. We see Van, Aquila, and I can't tell if this is Shauna or an extra, but they're all standing together in a very dark space, and Van's holding a candle that abruptly goes out. We see young Ty saying, "This place will follow us for the rest of our lives." Again, we see Van in the flames. It's just her eyes and the fire. We see a transparent cordless phone ringing and flashing red lights. It looks like it's just sitting in a drawer or something. We get a shot of Walter, and then we get a shot of Hilary Swank's character. I can't tell if they're in the same room. I don't think so. It looks like Shauna's back in her kitchen, and we see her shove a bunch of stuff off of her countertop. She looks like she's going through it. She has been going through it. We get another shot of Misty investigating those stairs with the caution tape. We get the same ritual scene with Lottie and all of the girls circling her, but this time they're all jumping up and down, and the fire in front of them is really intensely sparking. We get Freezer Jackie again. She tells who I assume is Shauna, someone is trying to hurt you for what you did. Felt Misty in her scrubs, and she says, "This is not healthy." And then the closing shot is a heavily bearded Coach Ben screaming out. Okay, so this is an overview of the official Season 3 trailer. The opening scene is Shauna looking up from a letter, and then we see Ty opening her trunk. We see Misty rummaging through a dumpster and holding up a piece of trash. She looks like she's closely inspecting it. We see Van in a black cap, just her side profile, and then we see young Natalie in the crash site again. Misty's pulling up that face mask, and Shauna draws a weapon. Misty's opening a storage unit. Shauna's in the freezer. We see a quick shot of Ty, then we see a shot of Van and there's candles lit behind her. We get a shot of Lottie, and then we see the silhouette of the Antler Queen. We get a shot of the plane crash site where they had written SOS in lipstick on the side of the plane. We see all the girls jumping up and down together, and then we see Mari standing behind a tree looking pretty terrified. We see the 5 main girls pushing some sort of big blue wooden pallet. I can't tell if they're putting it on top of something or they're removing it from something. We see Nat in a apron back at the campsite. It kind of looks like a butcher's apron. And then we see another ritualistic dinner kind of scene. It reminds me of the Doom's Coming from season 2, and that is kind of confirmed by the plate that we're seeing next. It's a bunch of foliage and some mushrooms. We see Lottie dressed in fur, and she's covered in blood, ravenously eating something. Shauna looks up to the sky and we see her howling like a wolf again. And then we see a couple of the girls, they're in the winter scene still, and they're running after somebody with spears. It looks like it's another hunt. We see the girls jumping up and down together again. We see Nat on her own looking off into the distance. And then we see Shauna and Ty back at camp, and they're looking off over their shoulders. Melissa finished the sentence, "People are willing to do messed up stuff out here just to see another day." That was voiced over those last couple of scenes I just mentioned. We see Ty cocking back a weapon, but this time there are tears in her eyes. A shot of Leaves being hit with some blood splatter. There's a zoom in of Nat in the plane crash, and we get a voiceover from Misty saying, "I think Natalie knows where Coach Scott is." We get a shot of Coach Ben sitting on his own in the forest, and then Misty finishes that voiceover. She asks if Natalie deserves to be the leader. We see young Shauna with Melissa, and she tells the others, instead of doing what was right for us, she did what she wanted to do. See all of the remaining survivors standing around the camp, and then it pans to Natalie on the ground of the camp with a scratched up face. We see the girls walking in the line with torches, and then we hear young Shauna say, well, tonight, let's give the wilderness what it wants. We get another shot of the girls walking together, and this time with a weapon. We see all of the girls dressed up in white, and they're releasing lanterns into the night sky. They're all standing in a semicircle with Lottie dead set in the middle. A shot of young Ty talking to somebody. Asks them, aren't you worried about what we're going to have to tell people if we get back? And then we see young Shauna alone in a patch of grass. It kind of looks like she's visiting a grave of some sort. We see a flat stone, and then she puts two fingers down to it as if she's kissing it. We see her stare at the camera, and she looks very pissed. Lottie's standing alone at camp. She's only lit up by the torches behind her, and then she slowly picks up a piece of meat and begins to eat it. We see Misty look off into the distance, and we get a solo shot. Young Ty and Van together in the same environment. It looks like they have their mouths open and they're chanting something. We see Mari doing the same thing with what looks to be a rib bone in her hand. We get a montage of the group circling a fire, and then we see the girls jumping and screaming. The girl that we've seen in that blue hoodie is holding up the letter that she had to come to her door and grab, the one addressed to Shauna. Then we see adult Shauna holding up a letter of her own and somberly reading that. Both scenes are voiced over by, I believe it was Ty, saying this place will follow us for the rest of our lives. We see adult Ty pick a queen card off the ground, and then we see her crouch down and stare off into the camera. And then we see a shot of Van with a baseball cap on again. I can't tell if they're in the same shot in this scene or not, but I think that they are. Somebody holding up a cassette tape, and then it cuts to Shauna saying somebody wants us dead. Shauna's then sitting in the bathroom with an audio recorder. She has headphones on, and she looks extremely nervous. We get adult Misty saying, don't think for a second that I won't get to the bottom of this. It looks like she's standing in a very light colored house. There's blood on the walls behind her. It almost looks like a set of handprints. We see her again rummaging through that dumpster and holding up that piece of trash to inspect it. We get a shot of adult Shauna shutting a door quietly in that same house we see Misty in. The same kind of paintings in both scenes. Adult Ty is poking through some blinds. She abruptly moves her hands and then walks off. Adult Misty's investigating some letter with her blue light, and then we see Walter ask, are you hiding something? He's dressed up in a tux. We see a woman in a long formal dress with heels. She's in a dark, confined space, and she looks like she's passed out on the ground. There's some previously lit candles behind her, as well as a bunch of pipes in whatever room she's being held in. The words "Eat Your Heart Out" appear on screen over her body. Then we see Callie and Misty sitting together. Misty says, think about how screwed up we would be if we had survived a plane crash, only to end up eating each other. Callie responds, oh, I do. We get a close-up of Coach Ben screaming. We see adult Ty and her trunk opening again. We see adult Lottie dressed up very nice and being walked out of a building. Somebody's holding the door up and it's all glass behind her. We see somebody mashing a stick against a rock, and then we see Misty pulling a face mask up. We get a side shot of a woman's mouth. She's eating a piece of meat off of a skewer. Ty and Van are sitting together, and Van is finishing the sentence. The only people that know about this are either us or dead. We see adult Shauna pulling a knife out of a knife holder that still has a price tag on it. Young Shauna draws a knife, and then somebody with a blue button-down shirt is pulling a knife off of a dinner table. Young Shauna stabs the tip of her knife into a tree stump as Melissa watches behind her. We see adult Shauna sitting down with somebody and telling them the only way to be safe is to be the only one left, and she looks almost excited while doing so. We see adult Shauna mixing something up, and then we see Misty and her scrubs come over and stab her in the back. Before she stabs Shauna, Misty says this is not healthy, and then we see Hilary Swank's character running from a car that's pulled up beside her minivan. We get a shot of two girls in animal furs in the snow. One is holding the other one up to a tree with a spear. There's a shot of adult Ty and Van running down a street together, and then we get a shot of a arrow going into a tree. There's a scene of what looks to be adult Ty. The lighting is very red toned, and it looks like somebody is shoving dirt in her mouth. We get that scene again where all of the girls are standing together with candles and they look up to the sky. Akila, Van, and Shauna are standing together in the dark. They have a candle in their hands, which gets abruptly blown out. There's a quick shot of Freezer Jackie, and she raises one eyebrow. There's a shot of young Nat screaming out as the girls are behind her around a fire. Adult Ty is screaming with tears in her eyes. Adult Shauna shoves all of the clutter off her kitchen island in a rage. We see Lottie, she's only lit up by a flame and she's screaming. It looks like she's at their campsite, but it also looks like she's sitting in some sort of chair, like a upholstered chair. There's a close up of who I believe to be Shauna, and it looks like her eyes are bulging and bloodshot as if she's being choked out. Adult Ty is holding Van as she screams out and almost falls to the floor. He's somebody holding Akila up by her arms. It almost looks like they're trying to help her throw up. I'm not exactly sure though. We see Coach Ben again and we get a smirk from him. Then we see adult Misty slamming a picture frame onto the mantle of some fireplace. There's a shot of Mari and Van laughing together and high-fiving. Mari is dressed up in the pit girl outfit. We see Travis holding a gun and he looks up to the sky before he aims. There's the wilderness court shot. A car is driving erratically onto a grave site. We see adult Shauna and Misty brace for a crash. There's a shot of Mari and she looks terrified. She's spraying something. I believe it's pepper spray or bear spray. Young Shauna holds a knife up to Melissa's throat. Adult Ty and Misty are in some hospital room. Ty walks over and places a pillow on somebody's face, beginning to suffocate them. We see Shauna in the freezer again. She has something in her hands and she's slamming it down in front of her. I can't tell if it's slamming down on the floor, maybe on the handle of the freezer. We see that clear corded phone ringing again. Someone with long, dark hair is swimming fully submerged under the water, and the scene is tinted very red or orange. It's the same scene with somebody readjusting their kneecap. Someone's being held down to the ground by the back of their head. Adult Ty blows out a match. Hilary Swank's character is being held on the ground. Her nose is bleeding, and she looks up to somebody and says, "You really are insane." The remaining survivors are running around their campsite frantically. Someone's arm or ear or some body part is being bit into. We see young Lottie kneeling beside Travis before he turns to the camera and screams. We see adult Ty and Van kiss. We see a hand reaching over to a door, slowly opening it, and the light is pouring in. There's a shot of a bunny sniffing around a very green patch of grass. We see adult Misty with her phone flashlight investigating those stairs again. We see adult Ty with dirt stains around her mouth, and she cocks her head with a smile, very creepily. There's a scene of the man with no eyes, and he's making his way across the shot. We see Travis choking Lottie, and then we see adult Misty ripping her glove off to further investigate that dumpster. Adult Shauna has her eyes closed and is raising her hands to her face in a kind of praying motion. We see a girl in a nightgown in the body of water again. It looks like she's pulled under. Here are some fan theories. Some of these are really interesting, and some of these are just really entertaining. I believe everybody has asked me to link their posts down below, so please go check them out. This first one is called An In-Depth Chaos Magic Interpretation of the Symbol. I've seen some posts mentioning chaos magic and sigils on here, but I'm not sure if I've seen any that go into depth about Peter J. Carlos's Alphabet of Desire. Specifically, the attraction sigil and the circle on P80 are very similar to the main parts of the Yellowjacket symbol. The circle, the triangle with the cross, and the hook, I'm guessing this could mean the symbol is what draws the plane down in the first place to bring the girls there. Other things to note, the triangle also represents pain, the hook represents desire, and on P87 there's a circle with a line piercing through it which represents pain, but specifically penetration. Most drawings of the Yellowjacket symbol have the triangle overlapping or going into the circle, so I see a parallel there. Throughout the show, we see the characters drawn together and drawn to pain, even desiring pain, their own or seeing it in others. For extra lines on the Yellowjacket symbol, it could represent more of penetration/pain, maybe point to the other sections of the alphabet, or they could represent the chaos sphere. The book this was based on was published in 1978, which gives Cabin Guy a lot of time to either read up on the book or come up with the sigil on his own. So this one's titled The Best Theory I've Heard plus Greek Mythology. This one is rather long, so I'm going to try to summarize it. It has to do with the Greek myth of Persephone and Hades. The belief is that consuming something in the underworld will tether you to it. This poster says, in Yellowjackets, the theory suggests that the girls' near-death hallucinations are metaphysical moments where accepting food or drink ties them to death, mirroring Persephone's fate. We see Jackie drink that hot chocolate shortly before she passes. We also see it with Lottie when she competes in the hunt with Natalie. She almost freezes to death, and in that time, we see her go to a food court and sit down with all the other girls. She goes to eat her Chinese food before Laura Lee slaps it out of her hand. I might be remembering that wrong, I just know that Laura Lee convinces Lottie not to eat it. We even see it with Shauna and her baby. And in this theory, Coach Ben is not related to Dionysus, but he's opposing Dionysus, and that's why the girls are trying to go after him. They say that throughout the show, the girls' acceptance of rituals in the wilderness reflects the slow loss of individual identity, much like the Maenads who surrendered themselves to Dionysus. The merging of sacrifice, hunting, and feasting feeds into the idea that survival demands the complete abandonment of societal norms. Just as Greek mythology often explores duality, light and dark, life and death, order and chaos, the show's narrative fluctuates between these extremes both in the wilderness and in the girls' adult lives. This one's titled The Wilderness and Dionysus. It's another Greek mythology theory. If you can't tell, I'm kind of interested by them. Fresh off the episode, I'm back with more Greek myth parallels and theories. So going off what we learned about Lottie this episode, I've totally switched my initial ideas about the wilderness and see a lot more of Dionysus. Dionysus is particularly famous for showing up to cities and getting big mad when they don't worship him. In both Thebes and Argos, he is not honored as a god at first, so he steals women from the city, drives them to madness, and then they run into the woods until they start tearing people apart. He also eventually releases the women from their madness, and they return to the cities, knowing what they've done and having to live with the aftermath or being punished for their actions while under Dionysus' thrall. I wondered last week why Lottie did not set up her cult with herself as a prophet. Instead, she acts as a guru/teacher. I think this week she believes that being a prophet for the wilderness is actually not a good thing. Cult leader Lottie leans into what she believes is her innate talent of guiding people, but believes that the visions were a result of the wilderness controlling her or exploiting her. Initially, I thought they turned to worshipping the wilderness because they were getting boons, bears, starlings, and Javi for nearly slicing their hand tendons in half every day and shedding their blood. I now think they believe it's not optional. The reason adult Lottie is so terrified is because they think that the wilderness is a ravening abyss that must be fed blood or bad things will actively happen to them. Mari has already fully stated that she thinks they're starving because Nat isn't doing the ritual. I think we are already seeing signs with Nat, like Dionysus, who had both willing worshippers who followed him into ecstasy and victims driven to madness. They will find themselves punished when they don't honor the wilderness. This one's called Lottie's Visions. This image from the Season 3 trailer looks eerily similar to the places we've seen in Lottie's visions. I posted the second photo in a theory last year where I suggested that the images look like they could be tunnels that run under a psychiatric facility. But now that we see Misty lurking in a very similar looking tunnel in Season 3 and with a yellow caution tape around it, I'm thinking this might be under Lottie's compound. But how could Lottie have seen visions of this place as a teenager if she doesn't start her wellness community until she's an adult? Is it because her visions predict the future, or is it because she's been here before? If you've listened to the recordings for Sunshine Honey, it says formerly Camp Green Pine. What if Lottie went to Camp Green Pine as a child or a teen, and her visions of this place that seem like premonitions are actually snippets of memories intertwined? I feel like the other ones are a little bit more self-explanatory, but I would like to actually talk about this one. I really buy into it. I also really like the recordings for Sunshine Honey. If you guys haven't listened to them, I'll put the phone number up here. Give it a call. But I think the tunnels that we are seeing are 100% what we've seen from Lottie's visions. I don't exactly know how they're connected. I don't know if I believe the psychiatric facility thing, but I think it's a very interesting concept, and I would really like to see this answered in season 3. This last one is kind of lighthearted. A lot of people in the comments were kind of racking on them. I think it's just been brought up before. But this one is also just more of a discussion piece for all of you. Let me know what you think. The post is called Soccer Formation/Plays. It says, these are just examples. I know nothing about soccer, but have formations/plays been discussed? Sorry if they have. It's the familiar symbol that we've seen throughout the series, but it's set up in the form of a soccer play. The main point of the comment section is that this one is kind of a reach. I did see an emphasis on the head or the circle of the symbol and relating to the striker, which would be Jackie. These are going to be some of my personal theories for the upcoming season. So I think that we'll either see Shauna have a very intense power struggle with the girls this season, or we will see her become the next leader. In Season 2, Episode 9, we see Shauna pull the Queen card. As a chase ensues, her daughter Callie saves her life, and Natalie dies in someone's place. When we've seen this in the past, the person who ultimately draws the card dies, and whoever tries to save them seems to get caught in the crosshairs themselves. We already know that Shauna is internally struggling with Lottie's decision after the Season 2 cabin fire and her journal entries. Arguably, her storyline is one of the biggest. I feel like we see a lot more of Shauna and the consequences of Shauna's actions in the adult timeline than we see of pretty much any other girl. That might just be a matter of opinion though. I think me trying to assign a new leader is kind of jumping ship. But whatever happens, I think it's going to be pretty intense. I think Coach Ben is either going to get worshipped by the girls or taken out. Through the theories I've read in my personal research on a little bit of Greek mythology, I kind of buy into the whole somebody out there, either Ben or Travis, is supposed to be representative of Dionysus. I think Ben fits the caricature a little bit more, and we almost see Ben follow some of the myths of Dionysus. We know that we see him in the wilderness court, and I don't think the outcome of whatever decision making that goes on during that is murderous. But I don't even know if that's a great guess. Whatever the case is, I think that we will have to see Ben have some sort of character shift while out in the wilderness if he does survive. What better character shift is there than their new icon? One of the reasons I believe that Ben could survive is because of the pomegranate theory. Ben never eats the pomegranate. He doesn't partake in Jackie, he doesn't partake in Javi. From what we've seen so far, Ben is not tethered to this darkness. We will get bad news in regards to Van this season. Multiple times we see the man with no eyes followed by a shot of Van and Ty, either or. Thais' entire adult timeline in season 1 is kind of to show how anybody in close proximity to her gets hurt. It looks like they're only getting closer this season, but it also looks like we get multiple scenes of both Van and Ty in absolute shambles. Obviously, Simone's health is up in the air, but I think Van is next. We also get a photo of Van in that clear phone. We know Shauna has a burner phone of her own in her safe. Maybe all or most of the girls have some sort of burner phone to contact each other if needed, and whoever's blackmailing them finally got a hold of that number and is really coming for them now. I believe the girls will continue to encounter sick animals while stranded in the wilderness. So we see a sequence of sick animals, and I don't believe they are specifically supposed to be connected to a real life disease, but if they were, all of them sound like they have some sort of prion disease. According to the NIH, in bears specifically, it makes them friendly. It can affect both moose and deer, and some variants are described as a zombie disease or a brain-eating disease. I believe at least the bear and the deer are suffering from this kind of disease. For the girls, all of these animals are found in a time of pretty extreme need and seemingly either come spoiled preemptively or foreshadow a terrible event. When they bring home the sick deer, Van is shortly after pretty mortally injured. Audie takes care of the bear, and the meat they eat doesn't seem off or they don't seem to get sick from it, but we do see Jackie's death later on in that episode. But Jackie's death starts over them eating that soup. These animals are a stark reminder of danger, and it kind of reinforces the idea that if these girls are not thankful for these meals being provided, that they are being punished. I could 100% see how that could slowly devolve into some sort of religious phenomenon. Overall, I think we will see more of these animals, and I think that they will continue to signify some sort of extreme event or even death. And finally, I think we're going to get Pit Girl this season. I feel like I've kind of already explained my thoughts on this one in different parts of the video, but in general, I think it would be good to finally see this in season 3. I don't think it will be too early, and I kind of think that they should use this as a stepping stone. I don't want this to be the big reveal, I want it to be even more intense. Entertaining the Greek mythology theory, specifically the festival I was discussing earlier, I really think it could be in the cards pretty soon here. So realistically, I could talk about just about every scene from every little trailer we've gotten so far, but I don't think anybody wants to sit around for that. So I have just gone through and picked out some scenes that I thought were interesting personally or kind of vital to the storyline of season 3, and I'm just going to talk about my thoughts on those. First off is Misty and Nat's relationship. We see multiple shots of Misty wearing Nat's jacket this season. We see her opening that storage unit. We see Misty investigating those stairs with the crime scene tape. And then we saw Misty smash that picture. This and much more is pretty clearly leading me to believe that Misty is still grappling with Natalie's loss very intensely, especially now trying to explore a new dynamic and a friend group without Natalie. In season 2, episode 9 of Behind the Buzz, the actor who plays adult Misty states, Misty was obsessed with Natalie. It was the closest she's gotten to having a friend. She's not about to let that go, even if she ends up holding on so tight that she crushes her. I think Misty's going to help propel Natalie's storyline, as we only have young Natalie's actor this season, especially as we see her step into the leader persona out in the wilderness. Next up, we have Freezer Jackie in Shauna's visions. Throughout the show, we see Shauna haunted by Jackie in high stakes or high stress situations. In season 1, episode 4, when Shauna is about to jump off the bridge with Adam, we see Jackie appear next to her and tell Shauna that one of them are going to get hurt. Shauna looks shaken by this, but now when she turns to Adam, she looks almost more confident than before and tells him to jump with her. While in season 2, episode 7, we see Shauna return to the meat shed and plead for Jackie to appear. Shauna states that she really needs her right now. Jackie's presence seems to empower Shauna. When we don't see Jackie appear in the meat shed to comfort Shauna, Shauna slowly devolves for the rest of the season, and from what we've seen of season 3, it doesn't look like she's gotten too much better. Even if the message is negative or just something that Shauna does not want to hear, it seems like Jackie's presence helps bring that bit of fearlessness or drive out of Shauna again. This would maybe explain that freezer scene we see in the trailer where she's slamming something down into what I believe to be the lock of the door. Pretty much every time we see Jackie appear to Shauna, she furthers the storyline or changes Shauna's viewpoint, just kind of nudges her along to be more like Jackie, or what Shauna believes Jackie would want from her. Their campsite. Originally, I believe the team would find that tunnel system that we originally see Javi and then Ben in. I believe that they would set up their camp in there, but from what we've seen from the season 3 trailer, it looks like they have set up above ground in wooden structures. These structures semi resemble teepees, but in a more broad sense, it's just bushcraft. They still have that big fire that I believe is now central in their campsite. But we also see Lottie's compound semi resemble some of the structures in the season 3 trailer. I specifically saw the similarities during the scene where Lottie has the phenobarbital solution and when Lottie and Natalie are doing that light therapy. We see Natalie in that sort of canopy, and then we see Lottie in front of that circular window. Let's talk about Pit Girl. Obviously, we've gotten multiple Pit Girl reminiscent scenes, clips, photos, specifically Mari. We see her in a similar outfit to Pit Girl, we see her running in a similar fashion, and within the season 3 promos, we see her get beat up quite a bit by the other girls. The only thing that makes me think that they're going to keep putting off the Pit Girl sequence is the scene of Mari and Van high fiving and laughing together while Mari is dressed up in that white nightgown we keep seeing. The giant blue driftwood. Full transparency, I have no idea what this is or could be. All 5 main girls are moving this big blue wooden pallet. It's covering something. Some people believe it's the pit. Some people believe it's their cooking setup. I sort of believe maybe it's an entrance to the cave system. But I truly don't know what's happening here, and I would like any input that you guys have. New rituals. We see dooms coming as dinners, gatherings that consist of full moons and candles, more chases, more masks, more everything. I think in this season we're going to be seeing their rituals become more efficient, and we're going to see them sort of perfecting how they do things, how they pick cards, how they're existing post Ben. I don't think the girls really want to play with, not worshipping something this time around after the absolutely devastating winter they all had. Coach Ben. We see him screaming a lot. I cannot begin to tell you where he is, how he survived, or just about anything that has to do with Coach Ben. I really don't know what's going on. I think he's in a cave system, and according to the trailer, I think they're gonna find him this season. Natalie seems to discover his location first. I think the other girls, when they find out, they're so upset because maybe they're spreading their rations even thinner without Natalie letting the girls know that Coach Ben is still alive and kicking. Obviously, his return causes issues, but we do see him return. We at least see him in the wilderness court scene. I think the entire reason we see a wilderness court is because the girls do not want to go back to their old ways. They do not want to have a rational decision process when picking their next meal victim. I think their morality and rationale has been put on the back burner. They're not only trying to survive physically, but they're mentally trying to get out of this without, totally absorbing the reality, the disturbing, harsh reality of it all. I think it was hard for the girls to be kind of constantly morally checked or watched over, even though they kind of needed it. Hopefully, they just avoid another cabin fire. Teen Shauna visiting the grave. First, I thought this scene was Shauna coming back to check on her son, but rewatching the season 2 episode Burial, we see Shauna place him next to a tree, and there are multiple rocks being placed around him. In the new scene, we see her in an open field. It's just one smooth, kind of flat rock, and then we see her put her two fingers down onto the stone as if she's putting a kiss onto it. The only thing I can think of in this scene is this is some sort of secret burial that Shauna has and hasn't shared with the other girls. I don't know if it's collected remains or if she had her own kind of crystal misty situation. Who's holding that letter addressed to Shauna Shipman? In my opinion, it's young Shauna, but I have seen a lot of people believing it's Callie. From what I've seen of the Sadecki house, their porch looks quite different than the porch scene we get where this girl comes to the door and picks up the letter. It's also addressed to Shauna's maiden name, not her married name. I believe that this is Shauna just because I think we get more post rescue shots this season. I think we got one with Van already. It just wouldn't surprise me if the blackmail started before the current timeline. With how close knit the girls seem to be on the one topic of we don't talk to people and we don't, enter the public eye, it seems like maybe this isn't the first time that they've dealt with a stalker or a blackmailer or just crazed reporters. Ty and Van staking out. So we get a whole bunch more of Ty and Van this season. The scene I'm specifically referring to is the scene in which Thaisa pulls the green card off the ground and we see Van in that black baseball cap. I think that they are supposed to be in the same environment in this scene, and I think that they are trying to find the blackmailer. I don't think any of them have talked, so the queen card would kind of imply that there is a remaining survivor and they are the blackmailer, which is a common theory. I don't know if I buy into it. The girl on the ground. A woman in a very nice dress and heels is passed out on the ground of a dark room. There are candles next to her, and it looks like there are some pipes around. The common theory right now is that Misty kidnapped somebody again, and I don't put that past her. It's definitely plausible, but I think that this woman is Hilary Swank's character, and I think that she's connected to the girls in some way that isn't Misty picking her up off the street and taking her home. The house Misty and Shauna are investigating. In the same home in which we see Misty tell somebody, "Don't think for a second I won't get to the bottom of this," we see Shauna in a separate room sneaking around on her own. When Misty's speaking, we see on the walls behind her, and the thing connecting all these rooms together is a buttload of plant photography. Misty and Callie's friendship. In the first look, we see who I believed was Shauna sitting down with Callie as Callie asks to be let in on, what really happened out there. In the newest trailer, we see her in the same spot, same outfit, but it turns out that she's talking to Misty. I don't know if Shauna has decided to try to protect Callie, and so Misty is the only one left answering questions. I just hope whatever shenanigans they get into don't end up as bad as the season 2 hunt and finale. The idea of somebody dying in another girl's place seems to really not go over well with the wilderness. The shot of Lottie walking out. A man's holding the door open for her. She's dressed up very nicely and I believe furs. I've seen a lot of people believe that this is Lottie being released from a psychiatric facility, most likely the one we see her get taken to in the end of the second season. Lottie specifically says at the end of that episode that the wilderness is pleased with them and just to wait. So I kind of do believe this theory of her being kind of rejuvenated after the hunt and after her psychoval. The knife sequence. 3 out of 4 of the shots that we see here are definitely Shauna, and I'm thinking the one of the button down blue shirt is Shauna as well. I believe it could be the same house that we see those plant paintings and Misty investigating as well. There looks to be two glasses on the table, and it's a very light colored home. It would make sense if Shauna and Misty went to investigate and got invited in and offered something to drink. I think we're gonna see a lot of violence come from Shauna, as if we need more of it. I think Shauna's gonna have a very intense power struggle this season. Either that's gonna be with the other girls, or it's gonna be really with herself and her current role to be the only one left. So obviously Shauna's going kind of off the rails. I believe her behavior from the end of season 2 has only been exasperated. I believe she might be trying to teach herself to keep a lot of those big emotions that we've seen her express more inside. I think she realizes that the path she's currently on is just unsustainable. But I also believe her turning all of these emotions inward has only made her more cunning and manipulative as an adult. Proclaiming that the group needs to whittle down to only one to form some semblance of safety sounds like something Lottie would have said before she got taken to a psychiatric facility last season. I think Shauna is just going completely crazy this season. I think her and Callie's characters are going to be very powerful together, or they are going to be almost the death of one another. Callie trying so hard to put her neck out and save her mom is ultimately going to harm her. And I believe Shauna, as much as she maybe doesn't like her daughter, obviously loves her, and would maybe even die in Callie's place if it came down to new weapons. So I believe we see new weapons out in the wilderness. We see Mari, it looks like she's spraying something close to bear spray. And then we get a shot of an arrow going into a tree. I think we also get a shot of one of the girls carrying a bow, but I can't exactly make that out, so don't quote me. We know Mari at least has this mace. I have no idea where they would have found it. Their cabin just burnt down. I've heard some people believe that they find a hiker out there. I don't know if I buy into that one. I don't know if there's some sort of cellar, or maybe Hobby's friends are actually real and that's where they found these, but I will be interested to find out. Ty and dirt. So we see Ty covered in dirt in multiple shots during the new trailer. One shot where she cocks her head to the side and we can see it on her mouth. And then we get that one shot that's kind of red tinted. I believe it's Ty, and it looks like somebody's shoving dirt into this girl's mouth. I think this pretty obviously means that Ty is sleepwalking again. We never saw a resolution to Ty sleepwalking last season. It was kind of just the whole let's hope the hunt helps. But if it hasn't stopped, I'm assuming it's only grown more intense and probably more dangerous. Ty and Misty in the hospital. So Ty and Misty are standing in a hospital room together. Misty is standing by the door, and Ty is standing by a hospital bed with a pillow, and she slowly lowers it onto somebody's face. The patient looks bald and pale. I will say that the hospital room kind of looks similar to the one that we've seen Simone in, but I do not think this is Simone. I hope we see her again this season, though. Where is Simone and Sammy? This scene kind of makes me buy into the whole Dark Ty is getting even stronger thing, because this kind of seems out of character for at least adult Thaisa. Usually Shauna and Misty are more okay with this type of thing than we've seen like Van or Ty. The gravesite drive-by. So we get a shot of what looks to be a graveyard. Somebody's erratically driving towards these graves, and then it cuts to Shauna and Misty in a car preparing for a crash. A couple theories I've seen floating around are just other Yellowjackets graves. I've seen one saying this is Jackie's grave and another saying this is Nat's. I don't know if they are any of the above, but I will say I don't know if this crash that we're seeing is actually intentional. A little later on in the video, I'll talk about episode titles that we've seen so far for season 3, and I think those will kind of connect here. Shauna and Melissa. In these trailers, we see multiple shots of Shauna and Melissa standing together. We see them talking, and then we also see that scene where Shauna holds the knife up to her throat. This, alongside the new mystery character who has blonde hair and blue eyes, has a lot of people believing that it's going to be Melissa. Shauna befriending another blonde girl after a pretty big tragedy is not too out of character for her, I would say. And after the events of episode 9 and what happens between Lottie and Shauna, I don't know if all the other girls are necessarily on Shauna's side anymore. Melissa is obviously kind of a side character. Maybe she and Shauna grow a relationship just because she's not as close to Lottie as say any of the other girls are. I think it will be kind of weird if they just randomly add an eighth survivor that I don't think they've even said her name in the show yet. I don't know, I guess we will see. Van and Fire. In the first look, we see Van sitting in front of some fire. There's debate as to if this is a scene of her in the cabin, pre cabin fire, or, active cabin fire, or back at home, as we've seen in the first episode where she tries to wake up her mom. The curtains do look kind of similar to the shot that we get here. This has sparked a whole nother wave of who burnt down the cabin. Personally, I think it's post rescue shots of the girls. I think this is a shot of Van sitting at home, and I think alongside the Shauna Shipman letter, we're going to see a little bit more of their backstories once they get out of the wilderness. The Man with No Eyes. Taissa sees the man with no eyes usually as an omen of death. In the trailers, we see Van and Ty together multiple times, and we even get that shot of Ty looking over Van's shoulder to see the man with no eyes. To be honest, that shot alone, paired with Taissa's nightmares, is enough to make me believe that Van is now in danger now that Simone and Sammy are sadly out of the picture. The big debate is supernatural or trauma manifested, but I honestly think it goes kind of deeper than that. In fact, I think that is the question of supernatural experience as is. Could it be energy or emotion that humans are too enough to handle, physically manifested, sort of in the way that a hallucination or a nightmare would take place? A nightmare is probably a better example. You wake up and you know it's not real, but that doesn't change the feeling you have, that doesn't change your memory. Human experience and the capacity to process trauma is a huge theme of this show. In the world of supernatural slash paranormal experience, events like these happening to people who are especially vulnerable or immensely struggling, it's not a new concept. For example, poltergeists are said to go after teenage girls specifically, those who are going through immense emotional turmoil. There's a similar sentiment in talking about demons. These entities are said to target weaker individuals, those who aren't open to faith. I'm even somebody who would venture to say that I've experienced my own set of paranormal happenings, and I would admit I was not in the best place when any of those events occurred. I think that's the reason why the whole paranormal debate hasn't ever really interested me, because I think the paranormal debate is the paranormal experience pretty much. A lot of people will disagree with that. That is just a ramble. Do with it what you will. The crash site. In the official trailer, we see the text "New Season" over the crash site remains. Back in Season 1, Episode 3, the girls vote on whether or not to stay at the crash site or venture off and go to the lake. They ultimately decide to leave and head towards the lake, and Shauna writes in red lipstick on the side of the plane, "SOS, gone to lake." During the official trailer, we see the text "To the lake" crossed out, and it's replaced with one word, and that word is "deeper." My half thought out version of events here goes as follows. So the cabin burns down, and the girls return to the only location of which they know they have some sort of shelter. They stay at the crash site until the snow starts to melt, or otherwise it's easy to go collect the sticks needed to build all of the structures that they have. And before they head off to their new campsite that they're building, Shauna revises the message, meaning that they've gone deeper into the wilderness. So these are the Season 3 episode titles that we have so far. Episode 1 is supposed to be titled "It Girl." Episode 2 is supposedly titled "Dislocation." And Episode 3 is supposed to be titled "Them's the Breaks." The description for Episode 1 is: Summer inspires the Yellowjackets to ditch soccer for a more contact-intensive sport and revive an old pagan tradition. In the present, a cringeworthy funeral flows organically into a bar therapy session. Episode 2, Dislocation. The Yellowjackets are stuck deciding whether to track down a missing teammate or just trip out on mushrooms. Shauna secures a spot on the world's most unsupportive partner list. And we don't have a synopsis for Episode 3 yet. So for It Girl, we see a lot of violence in the new trailers. I think the line "a more contact-intensive sport" is in regards to the violence and their acceptance of it. There are a spew of pagan traditions that come in the spring. Most have to do with growth, healing, prosperity, and fertility. Whatever route they choose, I believe we will see those ritual scenes of the girls in white cloaks right about here. They're all circling Lottie, and I believe this would be a great time to hand the torch down to Nat. These holidays usually celebrate the spring equinox, and the one I can think of is called Ostara, I believe. It's symbolized by multiple icons, but rabbits happen to be one. The cringe-worthy funeral line leads me to believe that Misty's encounter with Miss DeJaneiro was more sincere than I expected. They're supposed to pour into a bar after this funeral, and I can only imagine the debriefing that's going to go down there. Hopefully we see the girls bring up Natalie, and we see flashbacks of her as they recall some memories. The title to me implies that they're looking for a leader more than ever, kind of a distraction. So either I believe we will finally see Natalie fully step up, or maybe we will get the infamous pit girl scene in this first episode. Episode 2, Dislocation. I believe the girls will imitate a festival called Agrionia. So I'm going to put this link down below for you guys to check out if you want. I couldn't find too much information on this festival, but when I came across this definition, this kind of description of it, um, I I thought it was very fitting. So Agrigonian was celebrated at night with only women accompanied by the priest of Dionysus. Women pretended to search for Dionysus and then declared that he had fled to the Muses and hidden there. After that, they feasted and began to present and solve riddles. This festival allegedly also included human sacrifice until it got omitted because it caused bad omens to follow the participants. The line stuck on whether or not to go track down a missing teammate heavily connects to the whole faking out of looking for Dionysus. It said that whoever slayed a woman during this festival was later followed by disease, and we know one of the adult counterparts is currently battling cancer. I believe this experience will kind of shape the pit girl hunt that we keep repeatedly seeing. It seems like they're trying to establish some sort of hierarchy, and according to the myth, the woman who gets slayed is whoever these priests can hunt down first. That would maybe explain why they're all running in a pack together. We've already kind of seen that with the Javi hunt. Then with the bit about Shauna's relationship, she always has come off as kind of selfish. I think that Jeff might try to confide with her about the nightmares that he's been experiencing. I think that might make Shauna upset because then they won't be on the same page, with him okay with Shauna taking Adam out. Overall, the girls are misplaced or displaced, mainly because of Ben. I believe the episode will revolve around the girls finding a new place to call home. Apparently one that's comfy enough to trip in. I'm interested to see the post-trip dynamic without Ben or Jackie. Episode 3, Them's the Breaks. So I don't have a plot for this episode yet, but the term Them's the Breaks has origins in billiards. It's kind of the you get what you get of table games. Anyways, I think this episode will be relevant to the crash scene we see with Misty and Shauna driving towards that gravesite. As well as I think this might have to do with the girls grappling with the last episode's outcomes. Ultimately, the upcoming season looks absolutely beautiful, and I am beyond excited to watch it. Yellowjackets is the first show I've watched in a long time in which I actually have some sort of positive expectation as it continues to air. I hope I'm not just setting the bar too high and I'm going to end up disappointed, but I honestly don't believe I will be. Rewatching seasons 1 and 2, I still have such emotional, visceral reactions to some of those scenes, and I don't think that they would just randomly drop the ball on season 3. At least I hope they won't. Obviously, I really like this show, but I'll be the first to admit that it gets pretty dark. So to combat that, I've created a Yellowjackets Season 3 bingo card. Feel free to download mine, I'll link it down below. But if you want, just have fun and make your own. I think games like these are funny, and I think it's a nice way to have a little bit of community. Thank you for sticking around until the end of this video. Leave any thoughts you guys might have about this upcoming season down below. I would love to talk. If you had a good time, please check back in with my channel for a watch party / reaction video of the season 3 premiere that's coming up. We're gonna get a double release this February 14th.